When we think about our power grid, we usually picture these huge remote power plants controlled by massive companies, right? But what if the future of energy isn't some far off thing? What if it's, well, right here in your own neighborhood? Today, we're going to dig into a really cool idea that could put power, and I mean literally, back into your hands. No, seriously, just pause and think about that for a second. Instead of getting your electricity from some power plant hundreds of miles away, what if you could just buy it from your neighbor's solar panels? The house across the street that gets all that great afternoon sun. This isn't science fiction, folks. This is the real deal. And it's the whole idea behind something called a microgrid energy market. Okay, so why do we even need such a huge change? I mean, the lights turn on, right? Well, here's the thing. Our current power grid, it was an absolute marvel for the 20th century, but it's really struggling to keep up with today's world. It was built for a totally different era, and let's just say the cracks are definitely starting to show. So here's the breakdown of the problem. On one side, you've got the old grid. Think of it as a one-way street. Huge, centralized power plants just pumping out a super steady, predictable flow of electricity. Simple enough. But then, on the other side, you've got the new challenge. Our future, really. Renewables like solar and wind are fantastic, don't get me wrong, but they're not exactly predictable, are they? The sun isn't always shining, the wind isn't always blowing, and all that fluctuation, it creates a massive headache for a system that was built for stability. It needs these constant second-by-second tweaks just to keep the lights on. And that's exactly where this idea of a local energy solution comes into play. See, instead of trying to cram this amazing new technology into an old, creaky system, microgrids just rethink the whole thing from the ground up. We're talking about building it from the community out. Okay, the absolute best way to get your head around this is with a simple analogy. Think about a local farmer's market, right? You go there, you buy your vegetables directly from the person who actually grew them. A microgrid energy market, it's the exact same idea. It's just for electricity. You're buying power directly from the folks in your own community who are generating it. So this shift creates this brand new kind of person in the whole energy system. They're called a prosumer. And it's pretty much what it sounds like, right? It's a mix of producer and consumer. If you've got solar panels on your roof, boom, you're a prosumer. You're not just buying power anymore. On a super sunny day, you're basically a mini power plant with extra electricity to sell. And the benefits here? They're huge. I mean, they're really transformative when you think about it. For starters, the money from selling energy stays right there in the community. That creates a real incentive for more people to invest in renewables. Plus, you're cutting down on energy loss because the power isn't traveling hundreds of miles. And it gives residents like you and me way more control over our energy. But maybe the biggest deal of all, these local grids are just tougher. If the main grid goes down in a storm, a neighborhood microgrid could, in theory, just keep its own lights. All right, but this brings up a huge question, a really critical one. If you take the big utility company out of the middle, who's in charge? Who keeps track of everything? How in the world do you manage thousands and thousands of tiny little energy trades securely? Well, the answer is kind of surprising. It's a technology you've definitely heard of, but probably not like this. It's blockchain. And let's be real. This is the make or break question, isn't it? If your neighbor, let's call her Sarah, sells you a couple of kilowatt hours of power from her solar panels, how do you both trust that the deal is legit? That she gets paid, that you get the energy, that it's all accounted for, without some big company acting as a middleman? How does that work? That's where blockchain comes in. For our purposes here, you don't need to be an expert. Just think of it like a shared digital notebook. It's secure, it's transparent, and it's automated. Every single one of those little transactions between you and Sarah gets recorded in this notebook. And here's the key part. Everyone can see it, but nobody, not one single person, can go back and change it. It's what creates trust without needing a central authority. So let's walk through how a trade would actually happen, step by step. Okay, so first, your solar panels are soaking up the sun, generating more power than you're using. Step 2, an app on your phone automatically puts that extra power up for sale on the local market. Then, your neighbor's smart meter realizes, hey, I need a little juice, and it automatically buys that energy from you in almost real time. And finally, the whole thing, the energy, the payment, is zapped onto the blockchain, recorded securely forever. The best part? It all happens seamlessly, completely in the background. Okay, this all sounds amazing in theory, right? But the million-dollar question is, does this actually work in the real world? Well, to find out, we're going to look at a super interesting case study. Let's talk about the Brooklyn Microgrid. Now, this was not some little lab experiment. The Brooklyn Microgrid was one of the very first attempts to create a real, genuine peer-to-peer energy market. We're talking real homes with real solar panels connected to their real neighbors, all powered by blockchain. And of course, researchers were watching closely to see if the whole concept actually held water. So after studying the project, the researchers basically gave it a report card. And the results are fascinating. The core market stuff, matching buyers and sellers, processing payments, A+, worked perfectly. The supporting functions, things like billing and handling disputes, they were getting there, making good progress. But then, you see that at the bottom? A huge red flag, regulatory compliance. The project basically slammed into a brick wall because our current energy laws they were never designed for neighbors to trade power with each other. But hold on, let's not get bogged down by that just yet. Let's focus on the good news here. Think about this. 6 out of the 7 key components needed for this market to work were successfully demonstrated. From a purely technological perspective, this was a huge success. It proved that this idea of a decentralized peer-to-peer energy market isn't just some fantasy. It's a totally viable reality. In fact, the researchers' own conclusion really sums it up perfectly. They said, and I'm quoting here, that blockchains are an eligible technology to operate decentralized microgrid energy markets. Eligible. In other words, the tech is ready. Blockchain is ready for prime time. It can absolutely do this job. So, if the technology is ready to go, what's the holdup? What's holding us back from doing this everywhere? Well, that brings us to the final and, honestly, the most important piece of this puzzle, the single biggest hurdle that's still in the way. And here it is, the main takeaway from all this. The challenge isn't the technology anymore. It's the law. It's about policy. Our energy regulations were written for a completely different world, a world of giant power plants and monopolies. They were never meant to handle a system where you can sell power to the guy next door. The rulebook is basically a century out of date. And to be clear, this isn't just a problem in Brooklyn, or even just in the US. The research points out that this is a global issue. In most countries around the world, the rulebooks are still stuck in the past. They just haven't caught up to what our technology can now do. And so, that really leaves us with one final thought. We know for a fact that communities can generate, share, and trade their own clean energy. The technology isn't the barrier anymore. So the real question, it's a human one. Are we, our communities, our leaders, our policymakers, are we ready to update the rules? Are we ready to build that local, more resilient energy future that is now, finally, right within our grasp?